It's not about the money, the mooney. I already told you I'm
Not
tired.
about the mooney.
Ooh, money.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Hey y'all, this is Tyler Watson with Specialty Orthopedics in Gainesville, Georgia, and you are listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Welcome to episode 297. Donna.
We're getting up there.
Ooh, 3 more. You know what happens after that?
What?
It's the end of the world as we know it. Who knows?
We can't do that again.
Yeah, so for those who haven't been around a while, when episode 200 came out, I think we titled it, what, Shutting It Down?
We're shutting it down is the title of the episode.
Yeah, which we didn't mean we were shutting down the podcast. We meant that it was some people were talking about they were shutting down their business because of a breach.
Yep.
And so that was the title of it because of that. And apparently a lot of listeners went all War of the Worlds on us. Thought we were shutting the podcast down and was freaking out.
I know. We got more than one comment about, well, I'm glad to know you're not shutting it down.
Yeah, talk me off the ledge.
Yeah, we did get a couple of those. I can't go to sleep tonight. Tell me I don't have time to listen. Because we started at the beginning of it, just how awesome it had been and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So here we are, 100 episodes later.
Yep.
Almost.
Still.
We're doing something special for our 300th. You'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
We're going to see
we should have
where the future takes us.
We should have like a 300th episode after party on Zoom.
Okay. You set that up, brother.
I was waiting on that. You go ahead and make that happen there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're loving it that you're doing the videos now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. God almighty. So
I did. I loved it when you were sending me, I'm having all these problems. And I'm like,
dude,
I don't care.
I've got the production thing figured out for how we're doing it today, which is our normal setup. Well, when we met in Augusta and you and I are in the same room, cluster.
Doing our podcast.
Yes, we were podcasting because our stuff was literally sitting on top of pots to get the video cameras up high enough.
I know, I'm getting something else after that experience. So.
Yeah, and so the audio, we were picking each other up on audio, and of course our audio engineer is able to fix that no problem. The problem becomes the video piece and matching all that up because for whatever reason, I can't take the audio that the audio engineer did and just overlay it on the video because even though it matches up initially, within 30 seconds in, all of a sudden, I'm speaking Japanese. It's like an old Bruce Lee movie.
I know, right?
And it's not matching up. And I'm like, what is going on here? And, I literally spent, I know you love it when I say that, 6 hours on this thing. I was finally like, you know what? I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. I am not making any every time I fix one problem, it would create another problem. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. For those of you who watch the YouTube stuff, you just have to go without for a couple of weeks.
It's bad. We just can't give you crap. There you go. I can give David crap, but David cannot give you crap.
That's true.
All right. So we got some cool stuff in episode 297.
297. We're talking about courts, cameras, and exchange.
How about that?
Because all of them going down the tubes. But before we get into all that, we do want to say the HIPAA Boot Camp Virtual Edition in August coming up, 17 through 19. People are already signing up. You better get up in there. Go to the HIPAAbootcamp.com for more information because that's where it's at.
Yeah, it's very limited. I'll tell you right now, you become friends with everybody in there by the end of it.
Yep.
So go out there, check it out at thehipabootcamp.com. Awesome.
Yep. August 17 through 19, virtual. So, and we do make it a interactive virtual. It's definitely not sitting there listening to us the entire time.
It just feels like it.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But,
Bum, 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 bum.
Never. All right. Thanks to our donors. We appreciate your support. And hey, how about this? Head on over to Facebook or wherever else and leave us a review. iTunes.
Yeah,
love
we
them.
need it. We need
We
it.
do need it. We actually had a question come in before we started recording today, and I hadn't had a chance to read it, so we're not going to answer it.
I haven't seen it. How did I
Yes.
miss that?
It came in as we were about to record. So
Okay. Well, then
Just-
I'll look at it later.
throw that out there at you. So if you want to send us an email, go to our website, shoot us an email. We might answer your question, just like we'll probably answer this one next week.
Hopefully next week and not, I'll forget about it months later.
You have done that before.
Yes.
All right. Anything
So-
else?
No, let's get her started with the
Go ahead. Kick it off.
HIPAA.
Say what?
I love doing that segment. It makes, something little something.
Yep.
Anyhow, I was reading the news because, I do that a little while now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what you do in the bathroom.
There's a reason when I was growing up, they always called it the library.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it as a kid. Now I do. All right. So, and now we have digital ones. But anyway, going back to 2019, we've got a couple of stories that happened in 2019 around the same time that we're tying back to today.
Wow.
How about
was
that?
2019. That's like 10 years ago.
No, it feels like it. Yeah. So this one is from about June 2019, and the next one we're going to touch on something we covered in May 2019. How about that?
All right. Let's do it.
Hence
Back to
the
the
courts,
future.
cameras, and exchange. All right. So this American Medical Collection Agency.
Oh, heard of them before.
Yeah, we talked about them. This is back in June 2019. They announced that unauthorized user had been in their internal systems between August 1st, 2018 and March 30th, 2019.
Mm-hmm. A hot minute.
I bet you the date in June, I didn't go look up to be sure what the date is in June, but it would be exactly 60 days from the March 30th date is my guess.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere right around there. It looks like they went right down to, because they had this news, over 20 million people in the breach. And they're a business associate. So all the letters were to Quest and LabCorp and a lot of other smaller laboratories because they were a big lab collections company. So they had to tell that. And you know what happened?
What happened?
A lot of stuff hit the fan all at the same time. So their clients, I think LabCorp knew they were using them. It was like a direct contract, but Quest I don't even think they knew because it was like they were using Optum, who then hired. So this was 2 business associates down, which we tell you need to make sure you're aware. They learned about it just like everybody else. Wait, I'm using them. So they get the 20, right at 21 million, I think, in 9 states.
Oh, boy.
No, I'm sorry. All but 9 states are involved in a settlement.
Oh.
41 states have now announced the settlement with American Medical Collection Agency, which apparently has a parent company, and this is just a DBA, and there's some other parent company I didn't pay attention. And the settlement with the coalition of 41 state attorneys, yeah, that's a lot of pressure. And, this is falling under the state consumer protection laws and privacy protection and all of those kind of things. And HIPAA, among other things. There are several regulations involved here. And they, within like that same month, they filed for bankruptcy. All their clients left them. Like LabCorp and Quest were like, "You're out. It's not looking good." So they're clearly a HIPAA BA. And while the state's attorneys they can use HIPAA on behalf of their constituents, it's not clear to me. I'm used to reading the OCR ones where they're pretty canned as far as I know where to look for things. This one involved 41 states' attorneys adding to the agreement. So there's sections of Connecticut, you have to do this. In New York, you have to do this. But the net of it is they're agreeing to $21 million, I think, is the total. But the bottom line that really matters to us, we always say it's not about the money, the mooney. I already told you I'm
Not
tired.
about the money.
Ooh, money.
So they're only having to pay $1 per person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And remember, they're in bankruptcy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So basically they have to pay the $21 million if they don't hold up their end of this huge bargain. If they follow all these rules, then they don't have to pay the $21 million. Like I said, this one's kind of it's a lawyerly 41 states attorneys general.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of lawyerly stuff in here.
Yeah, I would imagine.
What matters to us is that it came out with this. It included this corrective action plan that they have to follow in order to keep from paying the $21 million. Yay.
Yeah.
And when you read all the stuff, I didn't even get into every single line item yet. Didn't have time. But I got into enough to say, boy, this was a mess.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So right after the news breaks, they file for bankruptcy. This agreement says basically bankruptcy doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can come on out of bankruptcy. But there's things in here. The first item, they must implement an information security program. First of all, that wording alone made me go, that must be documented in writing and must contain administrative, technical, and physical safeguards appropriate to the size and complexity of the business and the sensitivity of the PI and PHI the defendant collects, stores, transmits, or maintains. So a lot of that sounds pretty hippie-ish.
HIPAA-ish.
It's on the HIPAA-ish side, but, collects, creates, receives, maintains, transmits, that they shall permit users access to this PI and PHI only to the extent necessary for each user to perform job duties and assignments. Maybe we call that minimum necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So these are things that they should have already been doing. And I'm thinking, well, maybe they're just, because they were on their website. I remember going to look right after I saw the first announcement, and it was like, we processed 1 billion transactions last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. So
Yeah.
you say, this, surely they had everything in line, right, David? Because everybody uses them.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that argument before.
Yeah.
Surely that IT company knows what they're doing. They have to be HIPAA compliant because they've got a dozen other medical practices they do business with.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Ask the people whose IT company disappeared when they had the 20-something ransomware attacks at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next item was that they must employ a person who will serve the function of Chief Information Security Officer. If you're in the job of money and you don't have anybody that's serving that function on your company and you're running 1 billion transactions, and maybe you don't have that title, but it looks like they didn't have anybody, and it just says they will serve the function of. They don't have to have the title. They have the responsibility to implement, maintain, and monitor the program.
Mm-hmm.
That's called a security officer. You're supposed to have that under HIPAA.
Yep.
And then HIPAA doesn't include this, but it really should, frankly. You and I know this. That they shall have appropriate training, expertise, and experience in the field of information security to oversee the program, and further, will be charged with regular and direct reporting to the CEO.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a big problem in small and medium practices. Because
clearly, even in giant BAs.
Well, it's a problem in giant BAs because they're not taking it seriously.
Well, they probably think they did.
Yeah, a lot of people think they do, which is a big issue because even when you have somebody that says, you're not doing this right, you're not following the rules you're supposed to follow. And then they go, no, we've got this covered. We're not that big of a risk. Come on,
I know
really?
what you're talking about.
Come on, really? I mean,
Yeah.
At the very least, you should say, okay, let me look into that. I mean, you bring up a good point. Let me make sure before I open my ignorant mouth that that I actually have this covered. Because,
or what is it that you think I don't have covered?
Right.
I would like to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's just if somebody were to come in my house and say, yeah, there's some issues here.
Yeah.
You know, there's some integrity and structural issues to your house. I don't say, I think you're wrong. I say, well, really show me. That's concerning to me. Show me what you're talking about. I don't just dismiss it and go, oh, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to nitpick everything, but at the same time, you know, I should be able to, you know, people should want to evaluate, you know, because sometimes, no, you know, I know exactly where all the problems in my house are that scare me. Where I'm like, I feel certain there's something wrong there. And that is because that's what we're supposed to be doing. So they're saying, I got to have somebody in charge. I got to have a security officer that reports to the head honcho in charge. And they have to be trained and have some expertise in actually making sure this happens. And they need to report at a minimum a written report to the board and the chief financial officer on a quarterly basis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're in a smaller entity, it doesn't mean you don't do this. It just means you do it on a smaller scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just keep that in mind. Those are not unique to it's all entities based on the size. You do what's appropriate for you.
Yeah, and if you don't have a chief information security officer because you're small, then find somebody that can do that role or outsource to somebody that can do that role. But you do need somebody that understands information security that can help you make those decisions or at least inform you of the information so that you can make an informed business decision about what you're going to do about it and then document that.
Oh, yeah, because speaking of that, the next thing says include a documented written incident response plan. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Documented written incident response plan. For me, I think I've said that before.
A time or two.
It sounds vaguely familiar. At a minimum, the plan should provide for the following, and I thought this was really cool. I'd never seen it stated this way, but I thought it was really, really a great way to define it, and we're probably going to start using it somewhere in our training. That provides for the following phases of response: preparation, i.e., have a plan, test the plan, detection and analysis, see when something goes wrong, maybe in less than 6 months, note it and be prepared to do an analysis of it quickly, contain it, that would make sense, make it stop, notification and coordination with law enforcement and regulators, recover, consumer notification and remediation, and post-incident analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Those sound pretty much like what you would expect. And again, regardless of the size of your organization, you're going to need to do the same things, just on a smaller scale.
Yep.
Those are not specific to the size. Those are specific to the case.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I personally am going to use that list. It's a very good list.
Cool.
So everybody that says that your incident response plan is to call IT, note that detection, analysis, containment is all their process. And if you haven't done preparation, the detection, analysis, containment is going to take way longer.
Mm-hmm.
So that seemed like, pretty reasonable. Write it down, build a plan, and don't assume. It's Murphy's Law. Murphy's Tips. More on that later.
Yeah.
And then this one was tricky. They have like 120 days after the agreement to do this, and then annually for the next 7 years.
Ooh.
Yeah. An annual assessment of its program pertaining to the collection, storage, maintenance, transmission, and disposal of PI and PHI from a third-party assessor annually for the next 7 years, starting now and then the next 7 years. So I had somebody in a meeting ask me, how often should you really do those? Well, it depends. Do you take it seriously or not? Because if you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it keeps the requirements, based on those requirements. It says to me, there's not a lot of there to start with. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're having to make sure in here that they tell them that they clearly have to cooperate with, the defendant must cooperate with the attorneys that are monitoring things. I mean, there's a lot of things in here. And like I said, there's sections on what you have to do with New York and what you have to do with Connecticut, and documentation that you have to have in there, and that you have to maintain your servers in a secure manner at the locations disclosed in the confidential response of August 2020. So I'm like, well, that's good. At least they're not publishing where they're locating. I mean, why does the data center matter? And if you're going to relocate the servers, you have to tell us. And this one's good right here. Where was it? Let's see. Defendant shall provide notice of the proposed relocation to the attorneys general of Indiana, Connecticut, and Texas at least 10 business days prior to the relocation. I know. In the event the defendant loses ownership, leasehold, or control of such locations of the servers, are damaged, destroyed, or compromised. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
You're already filing for bankruptcy. Defendant shall provide notice and details promptly to the attorneys general of Indiana, Connecticut, and Texas. So they were worried about making sure they knew where the data was. But I think that, it's like each state got a little piece of something they're going to worry about or something in the deal without going through the details. But the big thing is, big company, billion transactions, lots of big clients, as well as small ones who probably said, well, they do Quest and LabCorp.
Yeah. They got to be good.
They got to be good. So what does this teach us in our HIPAA Say What segment? Whatever. So
where do we start? I mean, there's so many things to glean from this. You've got the fact that it's a business associate and you've got to take them seriously. You could be doing, all this stuff in your own HIPAA compliance program and completely miss out on these business associates.
Mm-hmm.
You're not vetting them periodically. I mean, some of this stuff is getting more serious where we're starting to see some CEs that are reaching out to these BAs and saying, look, we need to see that you're taking this stuff as seriously as we are. Because
Hickscrim had an update in September we hadn't even had time to cover, but we're going to get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Supply chain is a big, 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 big deal. And that means business associates.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think and we've said this from the beginning, that there are more business associates than there are covered entities. and every covered entity has tons of business associates. And so all of your risk is not within your four walls. It's spread out over all these different business associates. And so the more you have, the more risk you're taking on, the more complex things are. And it's enough work to keep up with your own program, but are you even asking questions about the program of others?
Yeah, because you don't want them. You work so hard and you got everything lined up, and then they, you get bombed from a submarine that you didn't know was down there, like Quest.
Yeah. And then you got the other piece of this, which is not only did you have a breach that's going to fall under HIPAA, but the states themselves can come after you. So whether it's you might be just in one state, it doesn't matter. Every single state has breach notification laws. Every single one. All 53 of them. No, I'm just kidding. Including the state of confusion. So all of them have breach notification laws. All of them have, some of them have even tougher things like California and New York. They have tougher laws against things like this. And it's coming. It's going to come to every single state being that tough, or the federal government's going to finally get their stuff together and make some big overarching law against or for the protection of information, because it's really getting out of hand.
Yeah, and Virginia signed a new one this year. I saw they pay, because every state had somebody talking about one virtually, and I know it passed in a couple of states. They're getting new ones. So again, we can't keep up with the states.
No, and I think the SolarWinds breach is going to push a lot of legislation, because people that were initially like, oh, nobody ever gets hacked, or we're good, or they're starting to look at it now going, wow. Even when you have a lot of good cybersecurity in place, if somebody's able to use a third-party vendor like that, then you're never completely outside of the reach of somebody. You are always at risk. You just got to figure out where those risks are and how to deal with them. So,
indeed. And you don't know when you'll get caught up in something.
No, to say you don't have any risk or you're low risk, you are fooling yourself. There is not a single business on this planet that is low risk if you're connected to the internet.
Yeah. Well, and to say that we have such little data. Well, you know what? If you have 5 elements of data that are considered PHI, and that covers even 1,000 patients, you've got a major problem here. Yep. If you can't prove you've been doing this stuff.
Yep.
So it's definitely something that you can't just assume, because you know what assume means.
Yep. It means you owe me money.
But just imagine the people that, these smaller lab companies, they made that decision. They didn't worry about vetting them. These guys are huge. How could they not have security? But you read the requirements of that. They did not have, for the size and complexity of their business, the things they're requiring them to do should have already been in place.
Yeah. And one of the things we hear, and I've brought this up I don't know how many times, but every time there's a big breach like this, there's always a smaller client that'll say, well, if they can't do it, how am I supposed to be able to do it? And we deal with that question quite often. And the answer to that is fairly simple. They have a much more complex environment than you do, number one. So the smaller you are, the easier it is. But the other thing is you're assuming they're doing it anyway.
No, right. That's true. Good point.
And obviously they're not in all cases.
Yeah. So you're making the assumption they're actually doing it, and that may not be happening.
Right. So, you actually could be taking security more seriously than the bigger boys are.
Right. So, just keep that in mind, that it's the same stuff on a smaller scale. That's really what you're doing. Just like you're treating patients or you're doing billing on a smaller scale than they are. Yep. So keep that in mind. And, just imagine if you found out all your patients were getting a letter from a business associate you didn't even know you had that has this much trouble, and then they declare bankruptcy. And oh, by the way, there's a court case, several ongoing, that is trying to go through the courts to say that because these people filed bankruptcy, we can hold the upstream responsible. So the medical billing companies, whatever, their clients are having to fight being held responsible for what these people did because these people have filed for bankruptcy. It's not going away anytime soon. So if you were one of those small labs, you can imagine what that is.
Mhm.
They're just hoping that LabCorp and Quest takes care of it because they got bigger, pockets. But the other thing is, imagine if you're the business associate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're caught in the middle.
41 states. That's all I got to say. 41
That's
states.
a mess. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, you're right about the business associates that are 2-3 layers deep. I mean, like my clients, they have no idea who I use for some of the things that make me a BA. And so, I sign an agreement with them and I try to make sure they're doing the right thing as best I can. Most of these are big, huge corporations like Microsoft, Google. Obviously, I can't go in and personally look at their program. So I have to use what information that they publish to try to vet that out.
Yeah.
But, again, my clients have no idea who all the vendors are. And I don't have any idea who their vendors are.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Yeah. I mean, you can only ask so many questions.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
And we do the best we can to vet them and notice red flags are pretty easy to see most of the time.
Yeah. But if nothing else, you want to be able to say, even if it happens to one of your downstream vendors, you want to be able to say, I have a documented program that I can prove we are doing what is reasonable and appropriate. Even though this happened, we still did what was right.
And we asked them to prove they were doing what's right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you look at some of those people that are involved in the solar winds, that went so far down. That's like 5 businesses below where they finally were able to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's crazy. So with that, that's the HIPAA part. What remains to be seen is if we see the OCR part on that specific case. Clearly, there's a lot that's going to start happening. There's a lot of things moving through the courts now because, the courts just basically had to shut down for a long time until they could figure out how to do virtual court. I'm still laughing about the dude stuck on the cat. I just thought about that. The eyeballs. You can see him looking.
Yeah.
I'm on my assistant's computer.
The sad thing is I downloaded that app and I can't get the eyeballs to do that. I don't know how he was doing it. It's so funny. It's like
I'm here. I'm not a cat. I saw an interview with the guy. It was hysterical. The things that we've gotten the humor of now. At least he, went in on the joke. He didn't get offended that it was hysterical. Okay.
True. All right. So, speaking of being on camera.
Yeah. How about that? Great segue.
Well, a lot of people are on camera and just don't know it, right? Like cameras are everywhere. Literally, sometimes. Matter of fact, we all carry around not just a camera, but an entire video studio.
Indeed.
In our hands.
Most of us do,
Yeah.
They're filming, movies and stuff with those gadgets now. It's crazy.
I know. And, we're constantly seeing people with, cameras on their house or, doorbell cameras that capture things, and we see it on the news. So cameras are everywhere. They are which is scary.
I know they are around my house. I know exactly where they are.
I do too. I see you.
Well, that's the weird thing. We talked about this. This is the thing we talked about in May 2019, that these cameras are everywhere and people aren't thinking about securing them. And we were talking about it, questions that came in. Or we would do things and do a scan. And it's like, what are these cameras? They're not, they're what?
Yeah. And speaking of the hacker, as we go into the story, keep in mind that the hacker's name is Arson Cat.
Yeah. I think it's a collective, but, but all they did was they're out just looking around, right? They're just out looking around. It's not like they did an attack. They all they did was see it and click on it.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the net of it. This is Vercatus. Is that how you pronounce it? We always have fun with names.
Yeah.
First of all, you're Southern. Next, you're slow.
Vercata.
Vercata.
Yeah. Cicada.
Cicada. Anyway.
But yeah. So one of my favorite sites to go down into a rabbit hole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they just found them through the Shodan search results.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it in that episode 202, episode 202.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Isn't that a coinky dink? I just noticed that.
I wonder if they listened to the podcast and then decided, let me go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I know, maybe. So, but they find that this is a huge startup, 150,000 cameras, wasn't it? Some ridiculous number like that.
Mm-hmm.
That it was like hospitals, prisons, schools,
local government agencies.
It's all over the place. And so they're like, look, we can get to all these cameras. And they were able to access root admin.
Yep. So they were able to see families at home completing the puzzle,
mm-hmm.
patients at a convalescent center, mm-hmm. in an ICU.
Yeah. I love the one where they've got where is this one? What appeared to be an interrogation at a police department in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. And hospitals being in there kind of made us go, we should look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So that we know there's a lot of legal stuff going on. The FBI is involved and all this, but the bottom line is they found it and released it. They didn't attack. They didn't, what is it they're supposed to do? So this gets into a lot of the security researchers are in a very complicated place.
Yeah.
The bug bounties, Google, Microsoft, they pay a boatload of bug bounties. But, some of these places, the researchers, you remember on the PAX one, we just covered it again. The researchers called the places and said, seriously, your stuff is publicly available. And they're like, no, it's not.
Excuse me, your zipper's down. Seriously. Please just
flying
look.
low. You're flying low.
Yeah. I'm trying to tell you before your stuff comes out to the public, your zipper's down. Okay? Just letting you know. You should probably take a look.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't know for sure what they did, but their server, let's see, it had hard-coded backdoor credentials exposed publicly on the internet.
That's not good.
Hard-coded.
Mm-hmm.
That means it was written into the program.
Mm-hmm.
The program had it built. This is never a good thing when there's supposed to be security cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, their point is, we just found it going through Shodan results. Mm-hmm. We're like, look, here's this. Look, here's this. Well, any of us could do that.
Yeah.
And it even included Tesla, Okta, Cloudflare.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, huge. This thing is massive. It's going to be a big deal, just not as big as like SolarWinds as far as the damage,
mm-hmm.
but as far as the spread. And if you have cameras, period, you need to like double check, triple check, quadruple check, never stop checking to make sure those are segmented and secured so that people can't access those and look around.
Yeah. Now, and there's a couple things I think this brings to light, which is one, you should consider every single piece of technology you're bringing into your business. Every single one. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients or customers who they're not monthly clients, but they call and they say, we had cameras installed and we need to have this app put on our device so we can see the cameras. And I'm like, when did you have them installed? Well, we had them put in last week. I'm like, this is the first I'm hearing about this.
Yeah.
You should probably get me involved in this conversation much earlier than after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it too is, what are you doing on a consistent basis to make sure that you're keeping up with either the fact that they are being updated, or at the very least, have somebody that's checking online periodically to make sure that this company hasn't had a breach? Because there's going to be a ton of people that are going to still use these cameras even after this announcement's made because they don't know what's happening.
Well, they haven't even looked to see if it's secured yet.
Right.
You know? Well, really, clearly nothing was.
Yeah. And so, do you think as a small business, somebody's going to call you and say, your cameras are breached and we can see you? I mean,
I don't want that.
Maybe,
Or,
but probably
a lot
not.
of times you don't even know. You're looking at the cameras. You don't even know necessarily. You remember when we kind of stumbled on the guy laying in bed and that kind of freaked us out. And we're like, we can't look at that.
Yeah. But, I mean, how are they going to contact you? I mean, did you register the cameras? Probably not. Even if you did, you get an email. Are you going to even open it?
Yeah.
It probably goes into spam or you just look at it like I do. Like, I don't have time for that. So, I mean, there's just so many issues with this. So if you're using anything, cameras or any other kind of technology, you've got to either have somebody on your staff or your IT company, you need to go to them and say, I need you to monitor these, or at the very least, periodically just keep a check online to see if there are any things out there, any news articles or breach notifications or anything that has to do with this company, so that I know something might be going on. As an IT company, we can't necessarily manage and monitor the cameras or the camera systems, but we can try to keep an eye on maybe some information. We'll set up some Google alerts if the name comes across or something like that, a news feed. There's something we can do to try to keep up with that.
But even this, I mean, no alerts came out until it was like, big news. Look at all the cameras.
Oh yeah. It's obviously it's a trailing indicator.
Well, the other thing is, I don't think people realize how important it is to segment those things.
Right.
Because they were able to get into the root. I mean, these could be used as a beachhead into a network.
Oh yeah. You can get in and pivot for sure.
Yeah. So that lateral movement, and I know we're using nerd terms, to us, they seem very cool.
Yes. I like to pivot in the network.
Pivot. It's a beachhead that we pivot and begin to laterally probe the network.
Yeah. Sometimes I even moonwalk on the network.
But the bottom line is, it lets us get in and look around and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what all that means.
Yep.
So I personally, I want the security of the cameras and I appreciate the security of the cameras, but I am constantly worried about, and I have them like segmented and all. I am so constantly worried about them.
Yeah. It's just like when you and I go bar hopping, we walk into the bar, we look around like, oh, nothing here we want. Let's go to the next one. This one looks cool. We'll see here for a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, geez, you're a hoot.
They're just doing that on your network.
Yeah, that's essentially what's happening. They're just looking around at what the traffic is. If they can get in anywhere, it's like you left a door open in your house, and they just stand there and watch what's going on, and you don't notice them.
That's right.
Until they find something interesting to go after.
Yep. So don't get caught with your zipper down. That's the main.
That's the big problem. Which brings us as another segue to our exchange issue, where again, lots of people caught with the zipper down. So if you are not paying attention, which, I mean, I can't tell you the number of alerts, and to me, this is like everywhere. I'm sure many people, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you didn't see that? It's like, I saw it 15 times a day for the last couple of weeks. I guess that says a lot about the news I watch. But
yeah, we saw it a lot, and we were asking lots of questions, which fortunately none of our clients, we got everybody off of Exchange a while ago. So
They're still using Microsoft. They're just not using a hosted Exchange server that is connected to the internet.
Yep. Which was kind of shocking that one of our clients, we came in as like the second or third IT company they had in a few years. I mean, they had like 6 employees in Exchange server. I'm like, really?
Jeez.
Why? Why do you have an Exchange server? And they're like, well, the last IT guy said we needed one. I'm like, for 6 people? No.
Yeah, well, we know where the last IT guy got their experience.
Yeah, that's like saying you're going to take your 6 people on a trip, and so you go buy a bus.
A big deluxe bus.
Yeah, I'm buying a huge tour bus because I got 6 people I need to carry.
One time.
Yeah, I know. I was like, gosh. But it's the more complicated and complex these environments are, the harder they are to protect.
Oh yeah, that's one of our ways to make a data breach more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Making it too complicated.
Yep.
Complicate.
That's the new word for the day.
I think the brain is winding on down now.
It is. I mean, part of what we do in our IT companies, we come in and we look at how can we simplify everything. And I think we never did this, but I honestly think that at some point in the past, IT companies were like, if we can make it super complicated, then people can't break into it. Which really means if we make it super complicated, nobody knows how to protect it.
Well, for the longest time, everybody thought, well, we'll just throw more technology at it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's, that's not going to help.
No,
that's not going to help.
You want to make your footprint, i.e. your risk, as small as possible. I mean, we go in and we're like, do you need this software? Get rid of it. Do you need this software? Get rid of it. This junk sitting there on your computer, get rid of it. If you only use it once a year, then install it when you need it and uninstall it. Don't leave it sitting there, because every single piece of software is yet another risk that you're taking. That software might get breached or infected or something, or used against you. I mean, make everything as small as you possibly can.
Yeah, just keep getting smaller and smaller, and guess what? You won't be hit.
Yes. We'll go back to pencil and paper.
So, if you're not listening to the whole Exchange thing and you use email, and you haven't had anybody talked about check on your email, and you don't know for sure whether or not you use any kind of Microsoft Exchange server that needs to be looked at, and you're in charge of anything remotely to do with running a business or security, ask somebody post haste.
Yeah. So if you use email, I would go ahead and ask. Don't even assume. Just go ahead and ask. Do we use Microsoft, and are we using an Exchange server?
Yeah, that's connected to the internet in any way, which is, most likely if you're using it. I was like totally surprised when I saw the announcement come out last week that said, this thing is spreading so quickly. The hackers are using it so fast to get into these email accounts. Yet another reason not to have PHI in your email. Mm-hmm. Even if it is encrypted, apparently they're able to get the entire files this way.
Well, I mean, just remember your email inbox it's like your life. Like, you can create a profile of anybody pretty much by just going through their email.
Oh, that's another rabbit hole, OSINT. Let's don't go down that rabbit hole this time.
Yeah, I scared the mess out of somebody the other week. I did an OSINT presentation. And so I did it for a local Rotary group, and I took one person in the group. I took 2 pieces of public information that I knew about this person and created a profile using, OSINT. And you should have saw the faces of everybody in the presentation. They were like, oh my goodness. You can get all that information just off of the person's name and a zip code. And yes,
I can get more if I really wanted to.
Yeah, because I only did it, I took a couple of hours to poke around. If I would have took longer than that or had ill intent, oh goodness.
Yeah, if you were truly committed.
Yes, I could have really messed them up.
So you have an Exchange server issue where they said you have hours, not days. And we know that some people take months to deal with these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're just now hearing about it, because we know when this comes out, if you're just now hearing about it, you're probably already in trouble.
Yeah.
Or you should already be taken care of, and you need to say, yay, thumbs up, gold star for whoever did it. So there you go. We had courts, cameras, and exchange.
See? Always delivering. We said what we're going to do, and we do what we said.
There you go.
All right, folks. Remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media. Rate our podcasting out. Give us some reviews. 5 stars only. Anything less than that, and you can go home.
You clearly don't get it.
And don't give us a good review and then give us 4 stars. It drives me nuts.
Roro.
It's the person who's like, no one ever gets 5 stars. You can't possibly earn that.
I used to be that way.
I used to work at a place like that. It's like,
Yeah.
you cannot do that well.
I know. That's what I learned. You know?
Yeah. I'm like, well, why is the 5-star there if you can't attain it?
No, right?
All righty.
All right.
So thanks for listening, and join us next week for another exciting episode. So remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.